So today, one thing I want to add, we've been talking lately, I noticed kind of one theme has to do with integration. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback, social media, emails, and whatever about this idea, integration, becoming. And I don't remember the titles of the last few weeks, but it's just I remember a few weeks ago we talked about how we have to awaken the Christ within ourselves. And again, it's like instead of worshiping Jesus, you have to become the Christ, which is the best way you can worship him. It's the best way you can demonstrate your love and appreciation. It's not the old school bowing to someone. It's like, show them. I even remember, the very few wise things my father ever said, my dad ever said. But I remember hearing him say to my brother a couple times when my dad would say, hey, what would you like for Christmas? Or what do you want for Father's Day? And he would say, you to be, nice, or whatever it was he wanted. He was talking about character rather than things. Well, in a sense, God, all the more, is saying, I don't need stuff. Races and religions sacrificed animals for God. Well, think about that. What did God get out of that? God's just like, you got to be kidding me. Oh, look, Lord, we've killed an animal for you. How would that benefit God in any way? So all these external things, because humans are so external oriented, their rituals are usually external oriented. But rituals are absolutely empty if with them there's no consciousness. So instead of I'm giving up this animal, I'm giving up my own animal self. That's what it was always supposed to be about. Even tithing isn't about some sort of like investment theory. Well, let's see, if I give 10%, God's supposed to give back to, well, that's a pretty good investment. That's not how it's supposed to be. What are my returns? Let me calculate this. It's I'm sacrificing myself, the old me, which isn't a sacrifice at all because I'm happy to do that. And I tithe because I am happy to do that because I can afford to. I give back to a spiritual source in a way of saying thank you for the manifestation of God in my life. Remember, people can act godless. People can think and feel and act and experience a godless life. That's the generic term in the old days for pagans. It didn't mean people of a pagan belief system. It meant believers and non-believers. So it's a really inappropriate term that people got to using, in biblical history and so on. Believers and non-believers. And then it became believers of what we believe, and everybody else is not a believer. They're non-believers. If they don't do it our way, then no way. So this idea of integration is just absolutely huge. And one of the most consistent topics I hear in counseling systems, in tribal systems, in the New Age movement, and so this word sacred space. And because we're external oriented, what do people do? Light a smudge stick and assume that space is made sacred. It's just the weirdest thing. If you're a jerk, it's not a sacred space. It's a toxic space. Think about this. So you don't light a candle, you don't, and say, now I'm prosperous. You don't light a smudge stick and say, this space is cleansed. Everything's about consciousness, not things. It's about consciousness. So if you think about it, the consciousness, if I want to make a space sacred, I need to change consciousness. There's no better way to do that than the acts of love, forgiveness, and the act of grace. But for humans, it's the act of forgiveness. Technically, grace is an act of divinity. Humans have to forgive, but God just holds space, sacred space, called grace. Now, when we hear about like the battle in heaven between Lucifer and Michael, technically you could say that was a battle for sacred space. We're saying metaphorically that this evil grew in heaven and Michael had to cast it out. What does that mean? That you need to protect your sacred space that you create. Now, in reality, there was no fight per se. Technically, Something that isn't sacred can't resonate with a vibration that's sacred, and it goes. But in a world that we live in that seems like there's time and space, then measurability, then we need to protect our sacred space. But if you're the source of it being unsacred and you blame everybody else for ruining the sacred space, you got to consider that. You know, we struggled with that when I came here in Sedona. One of the biggest challenges in Sedona is people love to be enabled. You know, they just love to be enabled of all their twisted different ways of doing things. You know, like taking a six-pack up to Bell Rock and calling it a sacred experience. It doesn't make sense. But they can do what they want. They're just not doing it here. So when we drew the line and say, no, you won't be doing that here, they actually got irritated at us. Well, that's because demons don't like sacred space either. Let me explain. If you have narcissists and psychopaths in your life, they're not going to like you creating sacred space. Because they're going to say, how dare you, step in and say, no to me. I love my disturbed thought systems and behaviors. Sacred space means love space. Any type of being that isn't comfortable with love will not like you creating sacred space. And if you're the mom of a household and you say, enough is enough, that we cannot have this sort of thing around our animals or around our children or whatever, and you say no, the partner might not dig that. They might say, hey, this is my house. I can do what I want. It's very challenging. What are you going to do if you're trying to create or maintain sacred space? You got to get it right within yourself. You have to become the sacred space. If you keep pushing it externally, you're going to have to fight to protect it. And people go to war, calling it holy wars, because they're thinking you have to fight to maintain your beliefs of your religion or your sacred space. But in reality, there shouldn't be a fight. In reality, if we're all in our divinity, we'll know what feels right for us. And we simply say no. We don't have to fight. It's such a clear no that all that is unlike this new energy, all that is unlike it will sort of part ways the way Moses parts the sea with God's power. So just keep in mind that a sacred space is a holistic experience and it's an organic experience. Holistic means I'm in it, mind, body, and soul. I'm here. But holistic means I'm part of it. Holistic health is to imply that you're involved in your health. It's not like I have an organ that's separate from me that needs fixed. My mind, body, soul, my emotions, everything's contributing to my health holistically. Well, sacred space is like that. Creating and maintaining a sacred space begins with me and on the inside, not the outside. The outside is fine. It's okay to burn smudge and so on and so on. It's okay to do all that. But if you think it's the powerful and you're not, how bizarre is that? Look, a weed. And it's all powerful. I'm nothing. That makes no sense. You forgot. You created the weed, the plant, the flowers, the smudges. We created this entire universe. And then we pretend my life just is terrible. You know what I need? To light something up in more ways than one. And then your life is going to be better. You created it. So people forget. We're so external oriented. I need something external to create a sacred space. And what I'm saying correctively is no. Start here. Start anchoring more of God within ourselves. Then start anchoring that God self into every environment you walk into. You can make a sacred space into any location. Someone can be dying. Doesn't feel very sacred. Oh my God, people are sad. And it's the attitudes. So you decide to show up and say, how can I be here for you? I'm going to hold space for you. I'm going to reassure you, even though you're scared or you're in pain. I'm going to be here for you. That's already shifting the vibration of the environment. You're creating sacred space. Even though people are upset and crying, you're not choosing to go that direction. You're choosing to say, how can I make a difference today? And I take your hand and I look at you and reassure you, eye to eye contact and comforting words. You're creating a sacred space. So human beings can go anywhere and create sacred space because it starts inside. Usually, if you were to go to a workshop and we charge $20 for a couple hours or something, and it's called, creating sacred space, you're going to be hearing about techniques about burning things and statuary. But again, welcome to our sacred space. Little waterfall in the background with only organic Fiji water. Buddhas in every corner. Smudge sticks burning, right? Namaste on my shirt, Om symbol or something. But if I'm a jerk, it's not a sacred space. If as I light the smudge stick, I think, the lighter's dead. Of course it's dead, because that jerk of a partner of mine never went and got me one like I asked them to. And where's the sacredness? It's got to be inside. We all have some incongruences in our life. We all have moments where, lighting the smudge stick and you're having a bad day. Not a problem. Choosing to say, wow, I just realized I'm trying to light a smudge stick while I'm very upset, hurt, sad, angry. Just see it and say, I'm going to give this to you, God. That's called an altar. An altar isn't to put stuff on. It's to put self on. So I put my stuff on the altar, and then I say, and I'd like to experience you instead. Grace instead. You're shifting your own frequency in seconds. There's no amount of smudge you could have burned that would have done the same. Other than you get so tired of burning it, you eventually look inside again. It's got to happen inside. I'm not dissing the rituals. I love them personally. Aromatherapy and incense and smudge and wearing the crystals. I think it's all just absolutely beautiful, but I'm just aware that it has to happen on the inside first. All the nice stuff without the inside being different is technically worthless. This is one reason why many renegades from the Catholic Church, Martin Luther and many others, why they rebelled. They said, you have gold everywhere. Everything's velvety and robes and opulence, because it's the Roman Catholic Church. Rome was a disgusting civilization. Yes, technology and wonderful things about it, but the behaviors were not very sacred. I mean, murderous, to say the least. And then they turned it into a church. That's kind of bizarre. But I won't say anything more about that. Other than the opulence. Kiss my ring, have the wardrobe and the hat and the staff and the everything. Frank and Myrrh. But there's harming altar boys, and there's oppression of nuns, and so on. It doesn't make sense. So of course it's seen for what it is. Of course the book of Revelation describes the great harlot, which is the ego, psychologically. But in terms of history, it became the Roman Catholic Church. Now, am I dissing Catholicism or people? No, not the sincere people in it. I'm talking about the system. But it's the same for paganism or anything else. If all you do is the external rituals and not change the inside, something's wrong. It always has to come back to, and how are you? Well, I'm not doing well. I think I'll light a sandalwood. Well, that's not going to fix you. Consciousness is the only thing that can fix us. Everything is about consciousness. And so we come to realize there's a way to create sacred space, but it has to be done internally. Externally is nice and it helps, but it doesn't really do the major change. I have to become the change I want to see in the world. I have to become the sacred space. Then anywhere I go, I bring a difference. Now for me, one reason I came to this is because of my bizarre life and lifestyle. Constantly, on planes and traveling and touring for all these decades. And I never thought for a minute, God, I wish I could create a sacred space. Because you can't light smudge on a plane. It doesn't work out, okay? So I realized somehow in my early years, I realized I'm being called on to do my work, healing, counseling, whatever it is, anywhere and everywhere. I mean, at times, I was literally at an amusement park a couple times. I was in jungles, in forests. I was near ponds, and also in you know, what do they call it? Blacktop jungle. You follow? I was everywhere. So if I would have ever thought, God, wish I could make a difference if only I had a nice healing room. I had to do it everywhere. And so it taught me by default to be the everywhere, to bring it. If you just love people enough, that love is going with you when you walk out the door and to wherever you go. So that became my way of going, wow. And now it's tempting. It was tempting for me to go, what a shame, because this outside world, everybody's believing in, you know, you smudge and then you create sacred space, or you spritz Mother Mary water and you created sacred space. And I'm thinking, they don't get it. It's not really that way. It has to happen in here. But I also grew to respect the other instead of seeing it as some sort of, you know, low way of doing this. It's fine to do the outside, but the inside's the priority. So that taught me, bring whatever I need to bring. Sacred space, and I've told stories about that stuff, but I mean, examples of just sitting next to somebody on a plane, and suddenly it happens to where I'm being called on to ask them how they're doing. You know, I take the headphones off, and because something's happening, and inevitably, tears start coming, you know, and it's an amazing thing. Try doing rage release on an airplane. You know, but I had to. Right now, Michael, have them release some rage. Really? Okay, this could go really badly. But in the moment, Spirit will guide us if we stay open. Spirit will guide us and say, you need to create a sacred space right now for this person. Okay, how? Have them do this and this and this. Words, prayer, anchoring, rage release. And I just have them take my fist, and they don't have to scream. Just think it. You know, and get some of that out of your system. It decompresses. It makes room. And now we can fill the room we've made with a little more God's presence. And now we have a sacred space on an airplane. The one really odd story was the one time I did that with one of the security guards, you know, the police, airport police. Without getting into all the details, I went and got on a plane because it was time to board. But because this was just after 9/11, flights were canceled. So I was traveling during 9/11, and I was in the Northeast, and flights were canceled. So I went and got on the plane, and apparently it's illegal to get on an airplane when there's no pilot and crew. So I was just doing, you know, my ticket. Okay, I walked on the plane, sat there. It was all, innocent to me. But then the security showed up. Sir, what are you doing? Hands up, you know. And what are you doing on the plane? Flying. You're not allowed on the plane. There's no crew. And who let you on? Well, I gave the ticket to the lady. And so they had to, go check. Well, they left one security guard with me, a female, and the other one or two went to check out all these stories and find out if I was a criminal. So the long story short, I'm standing there, and she's just, trying to make sure I'm intimidated, staring at me and all that. And then I said, how long have you been having migraines? She's like, what? How long have you been having migraines? Oh, God, all my life. Really, So I started talking to her, so da-da-da-da-da. It started when I was 12. My father died, and I took on the burden of the family. And it was up to me to bring home the money. And it was a lot of pressure, a lot of tension. Migraines started. Well, come here for a second. She comes, and I'm starting to work, hands-on and do certain acupoints to kind of really. She's like, oh, my God, it's gone. In the meantime, the security guards come on, and I'm like, touching this person, So, it's kind of strange. But no matter who it is, and no matter where you are, it's in consciousness. You could say it's your intention. But I don't want to use the word intention as though I'm conveying just like casual, I'll just set an intention. Heartfelt intention. Absolute commitment to what you're doing. Not just, I will now set an intention. I'm talking about mind, body, and soul believing in how much you care about people and how you'd like to make a difference. That all starts to weave something really beautiful. So there are 5 primary components to creating sacred space, and they happen on the inside first. That's the priority. Outside is great. I've already said it. Burn this and statue that. It's beautiful. We have those things in here. We have them in our property. It's beautiful as an accent. It doesn't do the being. It doesn't make up for the consciousness. We have to be the consciousness. A way to create sacred space, the way really to do that, first and foremost, loving and respect. Loving respect for whomever you're working with. Loving respect for this building or this property or this site. I've gone on sacred sites tours, guys, a lot. And people go, oh, you know, I'm going to go there and it's going to change me. If you don't want to change, nothing's going to change you. The Great Pyramid could levitate and then drop on you. And it will not change you. You'll just reincarnate as the same person you were. It's not going to make you different. It can't make you. None of these. They're rocks. They're buildings. They're trees. They're things. You're the creator of all of it. They bow before you when you know who you are. So I go to these sacred sites and people, ooh, wow, and this is good. And I'm like, what I like even more than the sites and the visions, and I'm not dissing the places, I love them. But what I like, my priority is the sacredness and the people joining me on the sacred site. You know, the tour. I love that. And if the people can't act sacred, I'm not interested in going any sites with you. And if it's not too personal, I'm like that in relationships as well over my life. I've had a couple of intimate friendships in my life. And if you interviewed any of them, they would say, here's how Michael is. If people are not being nice, you're not going to get anything from him. So I could be in an intimate relationship, but if that person's being rude to one of my other friends or whatever, it'll be like, work it out, get back to me. Goodbye. I'm not interested. I don't care how long I've known them, how close I am to them, how attractive they are, how sexy they are. I don't care about anything of the external. If this doesn't feel right, you lose me. Got that? Gotta feel there's loving respect. And in human conditions, you know, there's competitions and rivalry and stuff like that, you know, even within groups and all that, tight groups, friendship groups. And I was always telling them, no. When you guys are getting along, call on me. Oh, we're all going to go get dinner now. I'm on tour, or sacred sites tour, or I'm on tour, just teaching tour. And there's friends that are at those sites. Michael, we're going to all go get some dinner. But I hear, no, I'll be in my room. See you. That's how I was. Probably a drag of a person to be around or to have in your life. To think of as it's our teacher or it's our friend or it's a partner. You know, it's an intimate friend. Whatever level. They just knew. And it was probably a drag for them. Because they knew, you know, if we start acting too funky or getting in too much in our ego, he doesn't want to hang around us. You know, so sacred sites involve loving respect. I have to have it for you. You have to have it for me. We have to have it for each other to the best of our ability. But loving respect isn't the end. It's got to go loving respect, and then there has to be an element of safety. Safety means the loving respect has manifested. Because obviously, without loving respect, you can't really ever anchor safety. You could talk it. People can talk sacred space. But is it really there? If this is sacred, then you're safe. But so is the space. So if there's a person who's acting rude and disruptive in a service, or during the week for that matter, if someone's doing that, this is a sacred space. They're allowed to say anything they want. No. Only if it's congruent with the sacred space. We, through intention and consciousness, we say this is the vibration of this place, called Unity of Sedona, for example. And someone steps into it any day and they act incongruent. Say no. And we've had people, we've had people camping out on the grounds at the other location and using the lawn area to sleep, which is, I would too. It's attractive. It was calm, serene, except they used that little area as a toilet as well. So we had to say no. And you know what we got? Oh, you guys aren't spiritual, man. You guys are hypocrites. Thank you for sharing. I'll let you know if ever we care about your ego's opinions of us. And the odds are I will never be interested. What you're doing is not okay. Say sorry and don't do it, and you stay there again tonight. See, apologies and amends go a long way. But when people want to blame you for being bad when you're holding space, don't buy into it. Again, psychopaths, demons, narcissists, they don't want that. They don't want you to hold sacred space. They want everything in the world to be unsacred. They want it to be scary, unsafe, and so on. And they will do everything they can to ruin your space. If you've ever lived with one of these types of people, oh man, wow, look out. I mean, I had a dad that was like that where I had to be careful not to look too happy because he would make sure, and go after it. If you've ever lived with, partnered with, or whatever, it's that same negative kind of behavioral and psychological type of being. Doesn't mean they're bad. They're just wounded. But when your woundedness causes you to start wounding others, it's inappropriate. And it needs called for healing. So, loving respect is first, safety is second. I'm talking about in anything. Here at Unity of Sedona, safety. Someone's acting up. You know what? You have a no trespass order if we have to. It's only happened a couple times in our 12 years that I've been here, but it's okay to do. If you've got somebody doing this to you in your life, get a restraining order. The restraining order doesn't create the sacred space. Your choice to love yourself enough to get one was what created the sacred space. You get what I'm saying there? It's in here. It's in your being. I care. I matter. Oh my God. Bing. Light bulb. I matter. Already a sacredness is entering the space. Because if I matter, I must be worthy. If I'm worthy, that must be coming from some divinity or knowingness of my divinity. And that's what brings sacred space. My true self. Loving respect for yourself and others. Safety. Absolutely. And the categories, business, corporate business, your household, intimate partnerships, intimacy, sexuality, all of them have the same 5 steps, rules. Loving respect. If you're going to be intimate, make sure you feel loving respect with somebody or for somebody. Not in love, just a loving respect. There also needs to be a safety involved. Are we feeling safe? Can we really say that this has a great vibration to it? Yes, safety should be involved. But there also needs to be a level of responsibility, third. So if we suddenly start to feel unsafe, I need to take responsibility to turn this around. And to do that, the fourth thing is called communication. Because if I'm going to practice responsibility but not communicate my needs, I'm not being very responsible. You see what I'm saying? Any one of these missing, it will corrupt the others. And then it's not what I'm hoping it would be. And I mean, people, they seek partnerships. People seek having children. People buy 15 cats. They do all kinds of things, which are external ways of really trying to feel love. Lots of doing, burn, smudge, do all these things to create a sacred space, but you're not getting it on the inside. So you have yet another child to help bring you and your partner closer together, and it doesn't work because it's got to happen inside. So the sacred space, the loving respect, safety, responsibility, and communication. If you've got those 4, the 5th one comes naturally, and it's called trust and surrender. Oh my God. Trust and surrender. It's like, in a way, it would be like you were a nervous wreck about singing because of low self-worth and all that. And yet you had some friends that were performing a song. And it's your life's dream to be able to go up on stage and sing with somebody once. You see? But you're too nervous. But if you step up there and they create enough music and enough fun and no judgment, you might be able to step up there more easily than if you had doubts about any of it. So when we create a safe enough space, I swear, people can more easily step into it. What we think is, it's like, I need everybody else to create the sacred space, and until they do, I'm not stepping into anything. Well, that's a wounded person. If you want to see the change in the world, you have to be the change. You have to step in. At least try a little. It's not like you have to have it perfected. Just come out a little. Now, if I have a shy 3-year-old, or if I have a wounded 53-year-old partner, I still have to, I can ask myself, how can I create more of a sacred space here? What does sacred mean? Safe as well. Remember, they're all synonymous. How can I create a safe space? I've shared this story before, but real briefly. One time on tour, and I was in North Carolina at a Unity or whatever church on a Sunday. And I remember the band members, it was a couple, and they had a little daughter. And I just remember that they were like, Michael, our daughter's going to perform with us today. But she's very shy, and she's whatever, and she might not be able to do it, so, And she was going to do the sacred reading of the day. I'm like, okay, I haven't heard that one before, but okay, they want a little girl to come up and do the sacred reading. And they're like, but don't be surprised if she bails on it. I'm like, well, we'll see what happens. I don't know these people, I don't know the kid, I don't know any of it, I'm just a guest. So I step up there, it's time for the sacred reading. And, like the same kind of format we have here. And I'm looking at the little girl sitting right here, and she starts more and more sinking in her chair and leaning towards her mom. And the mom's catching on, and she gives me the eye like, sorry. I said, it's okay. So I come up here and I go, okay, so the reading's going to come out of the Daily Word today. A little brochure they sometimes have. And I said, oh, I don't know, what page is it? Honey, what page? And she goes, it's page 12. She answers me, okay, thanks. Oh, can you help me find it? She comes up on the stage. See, I flew in under the radar. I'm like, She goes, okay, it's right there. And she starts to leave. I go, oh, wait, I forgot my glasses. I don't even wear glasses. I was lying to the child, and I'm fine with it. I don't care. So, can you, and she's like, okay, what's, just read the first few words. And then she reads, oh, no, move the mic. The source of all love, oh, go ahead and finish that sentence. She finishes the sentence. Can you do the next one? Just one more. She does another one. I say, here, just finish it. And, sneaking it in there. If I would have said, hold on, everyone. We have a child here who's going to do a sacred reading. Lights. Ladies and gentlemen, here she couldn't have done it. Creating sacred space means creating safe space. I had to fly in under the radar, and it was beautiful. And she went and sat down, and she caught on. And people are applauding before she caught on. They're applauding. She's done. And the mom just cuddles her and looks at her, just said, thank you. She'd never been able to do that in her life, always wanted to. She would have been different after that moment. Because once you've done it, you broke some of the ice. You kind of cracked things open a bit. Creating sacred space is all consciousness, and it involves bridging. It involves inspirations and bridging to know what to say, what to do at any given moment. And the human race is so stuck in linear thinking that they don't think outside the box. It's either, come up here, never mind. Apparently she's too shy. Let's humiliate her. Even though you're not trying to, that's what you're doing. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, and I've seen this happen where they'll go, oh, someone's a bit shy. Unfortunately, that's sort of layering in there's something wrong with you. I don't believe that. I'm like, heck no. There's got to be a way to get you up here, and I know it. You want to be up here. Your little self is saying you can't do it. What can I do to get you to trust and come up here? I'll light myself on fire if I have to and say, quick, extinguisher, whatever it's going to take, because I believe you can get up here. I absolutely believe it. So that loving respect, safety, responsibility, because if she would have been brought up by me, and I snuck in there, asked her to read, and she still couldn't and broke down crying, I would have had to take responsibility that I tried and it didn't work out. I tried. And if somebody's upset, her mom's upset that she was crying, I have to own that I risked that and it didn't work out. Responsibility. If I'm doing this, if I can tell you, hi, nice to meet you, and we're dating and we'd like to get to know each other and have a relationship, here's what you can count on. Most of the time, whether it's 80, 90%, you can count on loving respect, you can count on safety, you can tell me anything. I have clients that can tell me anything, and they do tell me anything. If a client says, no, I don't want to talk about that, we'll cease having you as my client. I'm not interested. And therefore, they typically don't shut down and lock up because they know there's a sacred space here. You know, tell me about such and such. They'll go, well, how did you even know about that? When you see people, they're going to trust more, believe it or not. Sometimes the ones that fear love or fear being seen, they will contract. But generally, people open up. When you create a space, they can come out. And I've seen that, so often through my life. I've seen, as being a little kid, as a boy, very shy. But there were times when there were adults that could catch on to that. It might have been one or two, very rare, like family members, distant family. It might have been, I think a couple times, the parents of friends would be a little more like able to see me. You can tell when people are seeing you and opening up space for you. Give it a try. Come on out. It's okay. Because when they see the real you, they know you can pull it off. And when you feel their knowingness, it does make it easier. It's like they're canceling out your ego today. So it's very profound. And, it's like, wow, okay, so let me give that a shot. I've had a couple school teachers that say, this isn't Michael who doesn't like being in school. This isn't Michael who never brings, a pencil or a book. I didn't have books. That's why I didn't bring them. Well, why didn't you have books? Because I gave them back to the office. I found them to be useless. So I went through school and never, ever, ever had a school book in my few years of high school. I just made a vow. I won't need those. I won't be needing those. So I never had one. My locker was empty. It was empty. The only thing I had in my locker was permission slips to skip class. I grabbed a bunch out of the office and I borrowed their stamp and stamped, a bunch of them. And then I would give them to friends that were in trouble. It was kind of amazing. Out of my little office. You missed class? Okay, come here. Did you miss class or was it the whole day? Because I have two stacks. One was pink, one was pink, one was white. They were all approved in the office. So I was giving these things out, anyway. And at the last day of high school, I created a little ceremony where I passed these on to another. So anyway, that's Michael in high school. So when people see us, they see beyond the Michael no books and they go, like I remember a couple of family members, one very psychic aunt who they thought was nuts, of course. But she, she's like, Michael, would you like me to do a tarot reading? I think I was in 6th grade. Sure. And, my dad and people are like, oh, brother, And, oh my goodness. What? Now I'm expecting her to say things they always say. She's like, you're going to make a big difference in the world. My dad's like, yeah, Ashpet. He's like, I don't think so. And they're making all their cynical comments. But feeling that someone could see me and know what was happening inside of here was huge. She was creating a sacred space, even in a room with family members that were rude and hurtful. She created, right now, there's only you and I, 2 or more gathered with one intention, and something was changing in the room. And I can remember it to this day. Okay? All of us, any of us are capable. How can I put out in the world right now loving respect to a person, to a group, or whatever it is? Loving respect. How can I also bring a sense of safety? You can tell me anything was one of my ways of doing that. A sense of safety, responsibility, because at the end of the day, You, if you're a client of mine and I ask you 10 questions and you answer them all, and then you regret answering one of them, you need to take responsibility. You didn't have to answer that question. Is that making sense? And it's the same with whatever else we do. Be responsible and communicate your needs. Even if I know your needs, communicate them, because I want you to come out and meet me somewhere here so that I'm not meeting a ghost of you that you can later say, well, it wasn't there. So if you get these first four, if I am loving and respectful, if I am a safe person for you, if I am a responsible person, and I communicate, technically, you can trust and surrender. If I, as a parent, put these first four, my child can trust and surrender. You know what humans do? Light a smudge stick and leap. They trust and surrender when the components are not there, and then they blame everybody else. If you're going to go to a chiropractor, trust and surrender. It would be a drag to say, okay, adjust me, go ahead, and tense up. And if I were them, I wouldn't do it. No, why don't we talk about this? Let's talk and work it to where I need to see all 5 components. Trust and surrender, it's like, oh my God. When people create trust and surrender, like you guys do for me to talk about whatever I want to talk about, when a space of trust and surrender, the whole 5 points is there, then I have a sacred space. Here's what happens. When we feel a sacred space, our muscles relax, our endocrine glands light up, and we sort of feel like we can dance. I mean, literally. You just kind of walk like, wow, you feel alive. That 5th component is very organic. It just kind of emerges because someone or ones have stepped up and created a safe space. Don't be waiting for the world to constantly do that. I recommend you learn the techniques. You learn, contemplate these within yourself. How can I create sacred space today? Go ahead, light smudge, do whatever. But don't forget these 5. I notice that I'm being loving. I notice that the space is safe. I feel like I'm being responsible, but I'm not communicating. Then you're blowing them out. Don't expect the 5th. Communicate. Come out. But I can't. Why? Well, I just don't feel safe. Oh, let's go back there. What are you not feeling safe about? Well, I'm afraid I'll be judged. Okay, good point. Because if you're their counselor or you're their healer or you're their friend, partner, parent, I'm feeling like if I tell you something, you're going to judge me. Okay, then thank you for letting me know that, because what I'm going to do then is shift my consciousness into total acceptance. If I notice that I'm failing at it, I'll pause you and back out for a moment. You see what I'm saying? I can make little micro adjustments along the way, but thank you for telling me that you were afraid that I might not be safe. Or if you thought I wasn't communicating things that I was feeling to you. I can promise you, there's nothing I won't tell you, or whatever. Show up and do the corrective things necessary. If you complain about people not trusting you, please consider if you've left out any of these pieces. If you complain your child won't confide in you, look back at these. I'm not saying that they're right for not trusting you. They're correct, or that their distrust is accurate. But what can I do here? One time a daughter of mine came in my office, and I could tell she was just kind of, so what's going on? Oh, nothing. Yeah, But I didn't say, wait a minute, what is it? Spotlight. I sat for a moment and thought, I'm asking, but she's not giving up any information. Here's what I did. I went, what if it was a client that was acting like this? And so I said, I got up from my chair at the desk. I went and sat on the cushy chair that I had there, kind of a softer chair for guests or whatever, clients. I sat down and said, come here. And I had her sit with me, and I just held her. And she started crying and crying and crying, and then told me whatever was going on. Part of what she needed was to know that I was there. At my desk, I wasn't, because I'm working. But I made the external shift, didn't I? But did you hear me? I said I also shifted in here. I didn't just change chairs. Oh, this chair is sacred. I shifted into listening and, like a client, totally objective and totally how can I be helpful. Not a dad, but as a soul. And it made the difference. So think about this in your own lives. There are certainly times, and I'm not asking you to go and dredge them all up, there are times when you haven't felt one of these pieces, therefore you couldn't trust and surrender. Literally sometimes. I was going to play, a song. I was going to become a musician, but it wasn't safe, or I got humiliated, and I backed out completely. Your life could have reached a crossroads that totally went south because it didn't have these components. That's kind of sad, right? Go back and get them. Give yourself the permission. I can say it, saying it is easy. It takes a little bit of learning, and it takes a little bit of vulnerability, and it takes a little this and that to kind of step into that. But create friends and counselors. Don't just go to a counselor who, just kind of sits and takes notes. Ask them to be progressive. Ask them to take you into homework, to give you homework, to go somewhere. I remember a friend of mine said, Michael, because he'd been a counselor for 30 years already, and he said, Michael, you're raising kids. If ever you want to chat, I know we're friends, but if ever you want to talk, let me know. I went and sat with him, my very first appointment, which 20 years later, he said, by the way, I still never forgot that. Because he said, the first words when you sat down, I only want to work with you if you can forget that I'm Michael Mirdad. I gave him permission to say anything. If you don't agree with me, tell me. If you need to make an adjustment to my direction of parenting, tell me. See what I'm saying? I gave a safe space for him to go wherever he needs to go. And that was important because there might have always been a subtle, he's a teacher, he might not want to hear this. No, peel it off. If you can't peel it off, then I don't want you to talk to me as a counselor. So I've got to be responsible. And I've got to communicate. And then I found with him, as I've learned with friends too, I can trust and surrender. That's the ticket. Intimate relationships. I don't want to meet somebody and trust and surrender, which we call hot. Oh, can we have these other components? Oh, that's kind of, that's kind of a buzzkill. You want to do internal stuff? Like, really? You want to talk about safety? And why can't we just go for it? No. Right? Dismissed. Be the change you'd like to be in the world. Create these steps, and don't be too bewildered when you don't have this one. It's simple. One of these is missing. I don't have to be in love with you, but do I have loving respect for you? Is this a safe space? Am I willing to be responsible and ask you to be? And are we communicating? If we've got those, thank you. Thank you, beloved brother, sister. I don't care what you are. You're a board member. You're an intimate friend. You're a child. You're a parent of mine. If we have these, I can let go. And you know what we want in this world? To be able to let go. The musculature, the minds, everything is constricted and tense. What do we really want? To let go. Permission to let go. To cry, to feel, to be in love, to laugh. Some people aren't even given permission to laugh in their lives. Brought up so restricted. That old school, that old age is dying, and it's dying fast. And I'm glad that it's dying. The new age that we're upon now is one where people are going to dance. They're going to just channel the Spirit of God uninhibitedly. But to do so, you can't just say, I want to do that, and hurtful to others. It's got to have these components. I'm going to let go, but am I safe in my letting go? Am I being respectful? See, it still has to have all those components. Please take a few centering breaths. Let the muscles relax. Use the breath as a statement of letting go. contemplate what we've shared today. Calmly and gracefully, just let it all float through our mind and just accept what works for us. There's a way I can come out. There's a way I can dance. There's a way I can sing. There's a place, there's a space. It's the sacred space. I would love for others to create that space for me, but I also can choose to do it for myself right now. What if? What if there was no area of my life and no people that caused the opposite components, the opposite of love, respect, the opposite of safety, the opposite of responsibility, the opposite of communication, and constricting me? What if right now, in this present moment, none of that exists and I just am? I am. Release all that is unlike safety. Releasing doubts and fears in our mind and those projected by others. Treating ourselves like we would a child that deserved to feel loved and supported, safe. Calm. See yourselves dancing and twirling, the carelessness of a child. Be as a child. That's what Jesus says you need to do to enter the kingdom of heaven. Let go, let God. Is there anything you ever wanted to do in your life, but the space was not made ready for you? Look at it and cast it behind you. Goodbye. And make a different choice. So what if I created a sacred space more and more in my life? And what if I did so for others? Look at the vibration of every room. Look at the feelings changing. Feel grateful. Feel expanded in your heart and soul. Feel excited, but grateful. I did it. There's safety. There's movement. There's freedom. I can be free at last, free of opinions and oppressions, of my own and others, all free. And soak that in for a moment. calm, serene, and hear these words from Spirit, from the highest that we know to be. Imagine these words from a glorious, loving universe. Yesterday, my beloved, you were talking sacred space. Today, you were practicing sacred space. But now tomorrow, you will be sacred space because you lived it and applied it. So it is. Very nice. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Bear. There had to have been a day that Bear didn't, he hadn't already played a flute. And he had to get somewhere through these to the place of playing flute. The place of, let go. Let me just, and it's a great metaphor, right? The flow, the playing of the wind, the spirit, the presence. It's for anybody and for all people. So just think about that, guys. Just, not just the educational aspect of what we covered, but the beautiful healing aspect. To be able to say, you can do this. Go ahead, try again. Creating sacred space. Believing in people. And we all have our moments. I'm not in the mood to believe in anybody. I'm not even believing in myself. We have those moments. It's okay. Still, do your best to surrender that to God and ask to feel grace instead. That way, God can start working on you directly and or calling in other people that know how to create sacred space for you and come to you to help you out on a given, bad day. So I pray that this has really been seen and absorbed, what we're talking about. I think it's profound. I really do. I'm very grateful that these things came to me. The understanding came to me. I would really have regretted doing all these years of healing with a belief, if only I had had a sacred room, space to do my healings. I bet they would have even been better. That would mean I'm selling myself short and all my clients. Isn't that a bummer? Didn't you have a great healing? Well, yeah, it was about 80% of what it could have been. Could have been more if I would have had a room. God, to be able to confidently bring that. And I pray that you can really hear this, because I absolutely have seen this and lived this when it came to children. It made a difference in all kinds of areas, interactions with people and healings and the spontaneous miracles that, arose from my believing in these principles. I didn't think them. I didn't sit there and go, okay, let me measure the communication right now. I didn't have to think it. It just became very natural, because sacred space is organic. It's waiting to be activated, but it takes a consciousness to do so. Fear naturally constricts, there's no sacredness. And love automatically expands. As long as people feel safe, they can come out a bit more. I don't care what they've done. And I love that. I love when people say, well, there's something I can't tell anybody. Absolutely. Tell me whatever. I love that I set an intention that they naturally go. And I can't tell you how often I hear this. I don't know why I'm telling you this. You know why? Because this is created when people see that, they step into it. It's like water, bird. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. You create the space. A toy, a child. What's this little toddler or whatever sees a toy and then, a book. Let me go study. You're a toddler. Like the toy, it's natural. Place the space there and people will come to it. If you build it, they will come. So thank you. We're going to take up our collection and do our closing prayer. How beautiful. Imagine this being a regular thing in your life. God, I mean, you're standing in a grocery line, and I don't know why I'm telling you this. I mean, I'm just here buying Wheaties, and I'm telling you about childhood abuse. Your space right there, it's like, oh, it happens all the time. See, make it feel normal. Instead of, well, I don't know why you're telling me either. Right? No. Isn't this beautiful? That you can tell me like anything? My God. I've been at celebrity events where I'm sitting with somebody and they start just, here it comes. And I'm like, yeah, here we go. I mean, it's so funny. It's just so normal. Once you realize, I'm not here to add to the opposite. I'm here to add to this. And this is my only desire. This is what I love doing and being. This sacred space. It's the coolest thing. I think that every counselor, minister, parent, etc., and human being knows this on some level. But I don't think they all know the details of what they need to implement to bring the space to sacredness. And if you can't do it for you, don't think you're going to be able to do it for others. You got to know how to come out yourself, and be a little vulnerable and be a little transparent. I've got some hurts. Here's what they are. In the right time, the right sacred space to be able to share as well yourself. I do this every Sunday, a little something, of my life and whatever. I probably wouldn't have been doing that 30 years ago. I wouldn't have, for all the various external reasons, internal reasons, I don't know that I would have felt safe enough and all those other components with audiences. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because it's not supposed to happen, it's not appropriate, etc. But I'm an integrated being, then I'm going to have integrated stories. Hey, there's a God, this and that and the other. And you know what? Yesterday I was really struggling about something. And that's just the way it is. I don't want to do hours of that piece, because some people, it can be a little narcissistic in a way to go too far into that. It's just the appropriate amount to say, and here's where I'm at. A nice integrated experience. So thank you, folks, for being a great reflection of that. Our board members, our chaplains, our volunteers, I myself, all of us really appreciate what we've created. This is the real deal. Okay? This is, not Coke is the real thing. This is the real thing. This is the real thing when you can say, I can share anything, and I can share it, and some of you might not like it, but you'll still probably do your best to have loving respect for me. And that still helps me. Well, even though you didn't like hearing that story, thank you for at least allowing it. You see? It's beautiful. And we've had rare occasions where somebody, doesn't like something. When I've shared things like having worked with people from, seedier kind of environments. If I talk about working with porn stars, which I've counseled, and people like that, I mean, I've had people say, that's it, we're never coming back, send some sort of letter. We will never come back because, you dabble in that world. And we responded and said, and that reaction you gave us is why we need to work with people of that nature, to change this kind of topic in this world. See, if you didn't judge these things, some of these people probably wouldn't even go in that direction. We have judged categories, and so they're going to keep coming back as issues in our lives. So we just tell them, sorry that you feel that way. But if I said I'm not going to talk about it and shame it, it becomes a shamed category on planet Earth. I can't. I've got to open it up and shine light on it. And sometimes it doesn't work for some people. Do your best to be true to yourself. Thank you. We're going to do our closing prayer. If you'd please stand. And again, for those, who are aware of the day, it's Father's Day by coincidence today. And happy Father's Day to you. Now, who am I talking to? The fathers? No. I'm talking to the Father aspect of God in us all. So if you've ever sparked life somewhere, if you've ever inspired somebody onto a new direction in their life, anytime you've played the Father aspect of God, whether it's the protector, whatever you perceive to be the Father aspect of God, I and we and God itself gives thanks to you for doing that. Thanks for being a safe father, even the moms and even little ones. Thank you for being the safe father. Anytime you weren't the safe father, look at it, own it, give it to God, and replace it with the safe father. We all can make mistakes. But anytime you have been a safe father, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for making such a great decision for yourself. And that will just, the good karma from that will keep expanding through the world. Just a few centering breaths. The light of God surrounds us.
We are the light of God.
The love of God enfolds us.
We are the love of God.
The power of God protects us.
We are the power of God.
And the presence of God watches over us.
We are the presence of God.
Wherever we go, God is, I am, we are, and so it is. Thank you. God bless you.